Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Oh man, these intros keep getting worse. Well, I just finished the new Godzilla vs. Kong, the fourth film in Legendary and Warner Brothers' Monsterverse, and I gotta say, it's my favorite of the bunch. So I thought it would be fun to compare the latest mammal reptilian smackdown with the other films in the universe, including Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Kong, Skull Island, and 2014's Godzilla. And there are some pretty cool Easter eggs that connect all four of these movies. But before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe, because here we go. It's been 59 years since Kong and Godzilla have appeared in a movie together, but only 2 since 2019's Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and 4 since Kong Skull Island. The first shot of Godzilla vs. Kong is of the sun, which is featured in the very first shot of Kong Skull Island. The sun has long been a metaphor for the story of Icarus.
Remember the story of Icarus, whose father gave him wings made of wax, warned him not to fly too close to the sun.
Skull Island even ends with Kong's eye turning into the sun, and there's a lot of eye symbolism throughout these 4 movies. Speaking of Icarus, we see flying leaf wings, those spike-beaked flying creatures from Kong Skull Island, whose Latin name is Icarus folium. Here we get our first glimpse of Jia, whose name means family or home in Chinese, and China plays a huge role in this film, with the entire third act set in Hong Kong. Gee, I wonder why. Jia is a member of the Iwi tribe, a tribe we saw in Kong Skull Island. Marlowe says the tribe doesn't speak much, so it's left somewhat ambiguous whether the entire tribe is deaf or if it's just a Jia. Marlowe and Conrad were both named after characters from Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, which later inspired Apocalypse Now, and you can see how this movie is inspired by Apocalypse Now. Kong rips apart a tree just like he does in Skull Island. He's actually being contained on the island for his own protection. According to Iwi legend, there can only be one Alpha Titan. Since the events of 1973, the year Skull Island is set, the perpetual storm surrounding the island has moved onto the island itself. It has killed all the Iwi, but Kong was able to save Jia. That's why there's a massive dome around part of the island, and why Jia doesn't have any parents. Here we see that this is Monarch Outpost number 236. In Godzilla, King of the Monsters, we know there are several Monarch outposts all over the world, but nowhere near the amount in the 200s, so it looks like Monarch has been busy the past couple of years. King of the Monsters is set in 2019 and Godzilla vs. Kong in 2024. So 5 years have passed in the Monsterverse, even though only 2 have passed in real time since the release of King of the Monsters. Now these intro credits are chock full of little Easter eggs and connections with the previous films. First of all, the style in which they are done is the same as the intro credits in Skull Island and the end credits of King of Monsters. We see Kong using a tool here, just like he'll use later in Godzilla vs. Kong, but we get a glimpse of him using these tools in Skull Island when he takes a propeller to fight off the giant skull crawler. The credits also mention the Hollow World, a place we get to visit in this film but only briefly mentioned in King of the Monsters.
I knew it, man! The vortex was a tunnel into the Hollow Earth.
At this point, the Hollow Earth is still just a theory, and Dr. Nathaniel Lind has been discredited by the scientific community for his support of it. He even lost his brother who tried to venture to it years ago. The Hollow Earth is even hinted at earlier than King of Monsters in Skull Island when one of the Monarch scientists says,
"Hey Randy, you're not gonna believe this. The bedrock is practically hollow."
This is later expanded on by him when he says,
It's called the Hollow Earth theory, that there are these massive underground spaces isolated from the surface world.
The credits continue with mention of William Randa and his expedition to Skull Island in '73. Will Randa was the Monarch scientist portrayed by John Goodman. We see a picture of Godzilla shooting atomic breath into the Muda, or massive unidentified terrestrial organism, the main rival Titan Godzilla fights in the 2014 version. We also get a breakdown of Kong's weakness, flammable attacks. We saw this in Skull Island when Captain Packard tried to blow him up using explosives. His enemies include giant squid, skull crawlers, and titans, 2 of which we saw him battle in Skull Island. We also see the main baddie from King of the Monsters, Ghidorah, an extraterrestrial titan also known as Monster Zero, who was found frozen in the Antarctic ice. In the bonus post-credit scene of King of the Monsters, we see Alan Jonah, one of the main antagonists in the film, agree to purchase one of the heads of Ghidorah. In King of the Monsters, we see one of these 3 heads disintegrated by Godzilla. So there are 2 left. Bernie says the head here is connected to another another skull in Mechagodzilla, allowing the person here to control its movements. So this appears to be where the 2 extra skulls wound up. Back in the 2014 version, there's even a hint at Ghidorah in the ruins of San Francisco. This might be a subtle nod to an early draft of this version which had Ghidorah as the main antagonist, but it was taken out by director Gareth Edwards because he felt Ghidorah being an extraterrestrial didn't fit in with the film's Wrath of Nature theme. At the Apex Pensacola station, we see Godzilla appear flashing those blue atomic lights. In King of the Monsters, this is said to occur when Godzilla feels threatened. It's never explicitly stated why Godzilla attacks here, but it could be because this eyeball is somehow connected to the Ghidorah DNA/neural pathway, or that this place contains skullcrawler eggs. After this attack, we get a headline saying Godzilla no longer Titan Savior, which seems to answer the headline at the end of the 2014 version stating King of the Monsters, Savior of the City. We're then reintroduced to Madison Russell, one of the main characters from King of the Monsters. After the events of that film, she tells her dad, Dr. Mark Russell, who also appeared prominently in King of the Monsters, that Godzilla would never attack without reason. Actor Kyle Chandler, coincidentally, was also in Peter Jackson's 2005 King Kong, but that's not part of the same universe. Of course, his character doesn't believe Madison, and she turns to the Titan Truth podcast. Notice the triangle symbol here, which gives off huge Illuminati conspiracy theory vibes. Triangles are also used in the Monarch symbol, and even the Apex logo has a triangle in it. Dr. Nathan Lynn plays with a spaceman figurine, and I can't help but think of the figurine used by Ford in the 2014 version, even though his is an army man. Nathan is also introduced to Ren Shirazawa, the chief technical officer of Apex. Now, it's never mentioned in the film, but he is Dr. Ishiro Shirazawa's son. They share the same last name, and Ren's father, Ishiro, died trying to revive Godzilla in King of the Monsters. It's ironic that his son now wants to kill him. Perhaps he feels that Godzilla was responsible for his father's death. Dr. Ishiro Shirazawa is named after Ishiro Honda, the director of the original 1954 Godzilla, and Dr. Daisuke Shirazawa, one of the film's main characters. Ishiro's father died during the atomic blast on Hiroshima, hence why he carries around his father's pocket watch, which stopped at the same exact time of the blast. The original Godzilla in 1954 was covered in keloid scars to show how the similarities between the blasts he endured mimicked those of survivors from both Nagasaki and Hiroshima. While trying to recruit Dr. Eileen Andrews, Nathan talks about how Kong's ancestors reached Skull Island through the tunnels that connect it to the Hollow Earth. In Skull Island, we see the bones of Kong's parents who died at the hands of skull crawlers. Godzilla vs. Kong fleshes out this history by showing a throne room for Kong, likely built by the ancestors of the Iwi. We see these giant statues of Kong in the Hollow Earth, which suggests they lived there thousands of years ago. In King of the Monsters, we get a glimpse of one of these civilizations that predates the Egyptians and Romans, another clue that humans lived in harmony with both Godzilla and Kong in the past. In Madison's room, we get a paper cutout of her mother, Dr. Emma Russell, with the line, "Villain or Savior." Dr. Emma was an antagonist for much of King of the Monsters, believing that releasing the Titans would bring a balance to Earth, and that humanity has turned the planet into a war-torn, polluted, and parasite-stricken home. She later sacrifices herself to help Godzilla defeat Ghidorah.
Long live the king.
Dr. Emma was responsible for building a bioacoustic device called the Orca to communicate with the Titans. This started as a prototype to keep whales away from the shoreline using echolocation. In the 2014 version, Ford finds a book on dolphins and echolocation in his father's apartment. He had been using echolocation on buoys to see if he could find the origin of the thing that destroyed the Janjira nuclear plant, the place that melted down and killed his wife. Funny enough, in King of the Monsters, Madison has an email from NPR News which states, "Dolphins use targeted echolocation." While Madison ventures further into her conspiracies, we see an entry for Mothra pregnancy theory, which likely has something to do with Mothra's transformation from her caterpillar-like state at the beginning of King of the Monsters to what we see at the end. Fun Easter egg, there is a Mothra-labeled terrarium in the 2014 version when Ford and Joe visit their old abandoned home. While meeting with Bernie, the neon signs also include some fun Easter eggs. More eye symbolism here, a sign that looks a lot like the Legendary Pictures logo, the production company, and this weird-looking carp seen in the introduction credits of Godzilla and King of the Monsters. Later in the film, during Godzilla and Kong's first fight, we see how even the music carries over throughout the multiverse. Listen to these two clips and how the insanely deep Godzilla theme is reproduced in both King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong. Fun fact, composer Junkie XL, who also composed Zack Snyder's Justice League, told director Adam Wingard in order to do this, he'd need access to the world's biggest bass drum. The battles between Godzilla and Kong were hinted at in the end credits of King of Monsters. Here we can see some cave paintings. Even Mechagodzilla is hinted at if you read the fine print in the article over here, which states, De La Rosa went on to claim that Monarch was not only developing this mechanized giant on Skull Island, but had already tried to create organic titans in the past. But back to this first battle, where we get this shot of Godzilla dragging a destroyer after an anchor gets caught on its scales, an homage to Jaws when Jaws gets those barrels attached to him. In fact, the 2014 version of Godzilla was so heavily inspired by Jaws that director Gareth Edwards named the protagonists the Brodies after the family from that movie, and opted to show Godzilla for only 11 minutes in its 2-hour runtime, just like how Spielberg showed Jaws sparingly in order to build suspense. We see Godzilla use his atomic breath here, something we saw both in Godzilla and King of the Monsters. Meanwhile, the Bernie Bros uncover skullcrawler eggs. Skullcrawlers were those main evil creatures in Skull Island, and it looks like they're being used to test Mechagodzilla's powers. They even stumble across an eye of one of them from a previous experiment. The gang ends up being transported by Hyperloop to Hong Kong, but it's never mentioned if this Hyperloop takes one of the Hollow Earth's underground tunnels, or whether this is just a normal one, but damn, that's gotta be one of the biggest engineering feats of all time. Kong makes it to Antarctica, although this seems to be a different outpost than the one Monarch had in King of the Monsters, which was completely destroyed by Ghidorah. One of the things I noticed were the suits they wear have the Monarch logo on them, even though the mission is funded by Apex, and this is likely an Apex facility. Adam, if you happen to know why this is, just drop me a comment below. When Kong and the team do make it to Hollow Earth, they're greeted by titans we haven't seen yet in the Monsterverse, the Nuzuki, winged serpent monsters, which Kong makes quick work of and enjoys a snack, something we've seen him do in previous films. As Kong makes his way to the ancient throne room, he sees a giant handprint of his ancestors, which makes me think of this image from Skull Island.
And what is your point?
We see Mechagodzilla easily destroying a skullcrawler, and we learn that the mech is only at 40% its full power, and in order for it to achieve maximum efficiency, it needs the power from the Hollow Earth. This power is what Kong uses to charge the axe he'll later use to defeat Mechagodzilla. There's not much we know about this axe, other than it was found in the skull of a skullcrawler and appears to be made of a Godzilla dorsal plate. It suggests that the feud between Kong's ancestors and Godzilla's has lasted millennia, and we do know both had other family members. We also have this glowing image of a Godzilla-like serpent surrounding the throne, almost as if it's protecting it. I like to think there was a time when both Godzilla and Kong fought alongside to protect the humans from the skullcrawlers, but ultimately failed, resorting in them and the ancient Iwi to move closer to the Earth's surface. We also see at the end of this movie that Kong and Godzilla team up together to fight as one, and become allies, so we know they're capable of living together. Kong does get gravely injured in the battle between Mechagodzilla, but Nathan is able to jumpstart his heart using the pulse from the Heave craft, which is said to have enough energy to power Vegas for a week. Funny, since a Muto nearly destroyed Vegas in 2014. Thematically, all four films deal with the theme of abandonment. Ford is abandoned by his father, who goes crazy in his search for answers. Marlowe is stuck on the island during World War II, but later reunites with his long-lost son after 28 years. Dr. Mark Russell is never around when Madison needs her, and is only reunited with her at the very end of King of Monsters. And in Godzilla vs. Kong, well, he's hardly in that as well, choosing not to believe his daughter in one of the few scenes that they have together. Then there's Kong and Godzilla, both who are the last of their kind. Throughout all four movies, they show a genuine concern for protecting humans so long as they're not under attack from them. Just where they go from here is uncertain. With King of the Monsters underperforming at the box office compared to its predecessors, Legendary is likely waiting on how well Godzilla vs. Kong performs before greenlighting another Monsterverse entry. But what did you think of Godzilla vs. Kong? I want to hear your thoughts below, as well as any other connections I might have missed. Thanks for watching, everyone. For more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.